Hello everyone. This is Maria Chung Willoughby with a verbal for today's, in place of today's devotional. Today is Monday, August 4th, 2025. And the way this came about was that, as some of you may know, I was without my device for a couple of weeks, so I'm really, really behind in a lot of work. And others of you may know that I live a lifestyle which some may perceive to be marginalized, but I think it's the most free lifestyle ever. I get to spend a lot of quality time with one of my favorite people, me. So I wanted to share with you kind of my thought process and what happened as I was working. At first, it was a lot of stress because I was like, oh, I got to get this out, I got to get that out. Then I said, hey, you know what? I have a template, I have a daily schedule. I'm just going to follow that and let whatever come as it may. As I was working, in order to have background noise, I had on just some contemporary Korean music in the background. And as I listened, I came across two songs that really pulled my heartstrings that were in English and Korean. It's a song called Memory by Ben, which was featured in a movie, and another song called A Stray Child. And it pulled me so much that it made me want to create a little something that combines the two. So this is for all the Afro Asians and all the mixed children, period, that are of Asian and American descent, especially those that are Afro Amerasian. Seoul, Korea, and Greenville, North Carolina here. So this first one is entitled I Am the Memory, I Am the Child. And again, it is inspired by a stray child and memory. Again, it's for the Afro Amerasian soul still rising. I was the small child who wandered through hallways of silence, where the rain felt thick blood, and goodbye echoed longer than my own name. I was the girl left in Valdos's warmth, but born on Mount Crief Hospital's wind in Columbia, South Carolina. Cradle and songs neither side claimed, but both whispered when no one watched. I lost the way. Time stopped. Memory didn't. Even as the street we once walked faded, even as your voice disappeared beneath legal ink and family fracture, I stood in the place where time forgot love, but I didn't. You called it survival. I called it abandonment. Still, I prayed with two hands clenched tight like a child in a pouring sky, asking for one more miracle to name me again. They said, forget. I said, no. I said, I remember. The scent of octopus behind the chitlins, the moments of tenderness folded into layers of rejection. I said, I remember. The scent of kimchi behind the collard greens. Again, the moments of tenderness folded into layers of rejection. I said, I remember. The miracle of having been, even if no one else remembers with me. I walked alone, heart torn and hands open, beneath clocks that never moved, in homes that never spoke, the language of my skin. But even when the tears didn't stop, I waited for love, for God, for healing that doesn't need permission to bloom. I am the stray child who didn't stay lost. I am the memory who refuses to fade. I am the story that still sings, even when no one listens. And just for reference, I was disowned by my mother, and she was disowned by her mother. And she always told me, Morty, the Korean stories are always the sad ones. So I was kind of prepared. So and I just did these, so I don't have any music or anything. So this is another version of it. It's called Memory Doesn't Ask Permission. I stand now in Valdosta, Georgia, red clay underfoot, heat rising like old stories from the pavement. But Daddy came from Greenville, North Carolina, where the trees bend like they're praying, and history hums beneath porches and railroad tracks. I carry both. The southern drawl I never tried to perfect, and the solo syllables that remind me I am not from one place. I am from many echoes. I listen to Ben's memory, and her voice doesn't just haunt, it heals. That piano is a pulse, and every lyric pulls a thread I refuse to let unravel. Some want to forget, want to melt into convenience, want to rewrite their roots with silence. But I remember, because memory doesn't ask permission, it claims you, it finds you, it remakes you. I remember the smell of collard greens and kimchi fighting for space in my mother's kitchen. I remember the laughter that came from both ends of the table, even when the world refused to translate it. I am Afro Korean American, not divided, multiplied. And this skin, this voice, this longing, it's not confusion, it's clarity. I will not forget. Greenville is still in my veins. Valdosta keeps me grounded, and Korea whispers in my dreams. So when they ask who I am, I tell them I am the memory they tried to erase. Still here, still sinking, still mine. And I think I have another version somewhere. And again, so I'm not gonna get into all of that right now, but just a little verbiage to go with it. Like I said, my mom prepared me. She told me Korean stories are always sad ones. And like I said, her mom disowned her too. This was unexpected that my mother disowned me, but it was true to heritage, so it doesn't hurt as bad. Um, it's expected. I didn't really actually realize that I had actual tears until the touch, the touchpad on my device was wet. And I guess there's always joy and sadness, and it's the comfort of the expected, which is the joy, right? So, and to be honest with you, it's a kind of resilience, and that's part of my growth program that I'm working on. The G is for goals, which I always have. I was working on them, and then I came face to face with that need for resilience, the kind that gets passed down in whispers and sighs, and it's nothing short, I'm going to tell you, of ancestral power. And I'm going to tell you as well that sad stories in Korean tradition often hold a quiet dignity. They ache with beauty, but they also carry kind of a sort of grace. And my mom telling me that was her way of handing me armor, right? To protect me. It wasn't shiny, it wasn't unbreakable, but it was woven from lived experience and soft threads of knowing. And for those of you that don't know, I also have a newsletter to support my nonprofit in the process of reincorporation called Woven from the Womb. And it stands for Women of Virtue, Excellence, and Nobility. And Womb is Warriors of Missionary Battles and Blessings. So here I am now. I'm able to find joy not in the pain itself, but in how deeply I've come to understand its rhythm. It's a gift. And that is an emotional fluency that I'm very proud to have reached. So I let my tears baptize the path that I'm walking. It's not weakness, it's never that. But it's proof that through sorrow you remain alive, connected, and luminous. And by the way, my mother's Korean name, Wool, means moon, and my name means caters of the moon. But anyhow, um, and then when I think about the resilience and the sighs and whispers, I think about the Asian American experience during the California concentration camps. My mom was never over there, but the Korean Americans that were there and mistaken for Japanese or Chinese or whatever, there was a saying that was held called Hujimotoropsa. And I can't remember if I'm saying it right, Hujimotoropsa. And basically it means, well, there's nothing you can do about it, right? And then I also think that of the other side of the equation, when you think about African American soldiers in the U.S. military during Jim Crow and how it felt to fight for a country that when you return, exacted war on you. Now, where they do that at? Here, right? So the words just kind of ring in my heart like a war drum muffled in silk, kind of sorrow layered with dignity passed down through generations. The Korean phrase, Hajimotoropta, may not translate perfectly, but its actual meaning is hope once present, now vanished. It came, but it didn't stay. But the way I always translate it in my heart is, what you gonna do about it is nothing you can do about it, right? So it's a poetic heartache that sits quietly in our bones. And I think this is the final piece. It's called The Lantern and the Drum. And it's a modern folk tale that I braided from two rivers of sorrow, lit from within by memory. Um, it's fiction based on fact, right? Because I told you my mom wasn't over there, but here we go. She's straight from Seoul. So I'm the first generation born here from her womb. But anyhow, once in a land stitched together by promises and lies, lived two children, one with a lantern heart and one with a drum soul. The girl with the lantern came from a family of quiet mourners. Her grandmother once had danced in fields of golden California light until the guards came. I'm gonna change that. Her grandmother had once danced in fields of soul Korean light until the guards came. They said it was war, but what it felt like was a cage. She held her grief like rice in her palms, never spilled, only offered. The boy with the drum had thunder in his blood. His fathers wore a soldier's uniform, standing proud beneath a flag that whispered freedom, but shouted exclusion. And by the way, my organization, one of the missions is to master the art of humanity through inclusion. He fought overseas only to be fought by his own country when he came home. His courage was carved into him like hymns sung at night to stay alive. They met beneath an elm tree that didn't bloom anymore, its roots tangled with stories that couldn't be forgotten. And I'm going to change that to fig, in remembrance of the Bible, how Jesus went to the fig tree and it wasn't blooming anything, right? So, and I carry the sound of silence, said the girl, of ancestors who wept without permission. I carry the sound of defiance, said the boy, of warriors who returned to find the war wasn't over. They sat side by side, holding the lantern and holding the drum. The lantern flickered with memory of language lost, homes erased, and heritage denied. The drum beat slow and steady, boom, 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 of pride refused, battles fought on two fronts, love withheld then reclaimed. And the wind carried their sighs to the heavens, not weak sighs, not resigned ones, but the kind that came before healing. From that day on, every time a child felt forgotten, the lantern lit. Every time a heart beat with courage, the drum rang. And though the tree never bloomed, its shadow became a sanctuary, right? So I'm not just remembering parts of my history, but I'm restoring it. And that's how cultures survive and legacies evolve, right? So again, Hajimotoropta. It's a feeling of resignation wrapped in grace. It's not defeat, it's ancestral knowing. It's that deep bone level understanding that sometimes life bends too far and all you can do is keep walking. And speaking of that, I published a book a couple of years ago on Amazon called Be Like a Tree, and it's a peaceful journey, how to manage life's little storms. And that's one of the things, one of the lessons that I had is sometimes you have to bend before you break, right? Because, like I was saying, sometimes life bends too far and all you can do is keep walking. So sometimes you have to bend before you break. Quiet, strongly, and with dignity. And by the way, I'm using a workbook for my Teen Boys mission for young males between 13 to 17. And I've added Kwanzaa principles to go along with that as well. And the Teen Boys mission is called Izzy. It stands for Iron Sharpens Iron. It's from Proverbs, I think 23:17. And it's also a play, it's pronounced Izzy, like play on the name Israel for strength and resilience, right? So once again, it's the kind of phrase that doesn't need embellishment because the weight of it is already echoed across generations. Haji Motorota. It's like a shared look between elders, one of African American descent and one of South Korean descent. It's a sigh that holds 1,000 unsaid things. And I'm very proud to carry this legacy with such depth. And I'm adding my own verse to it. And I hope you can feel that, right? And actually, I have one more. I have one more. This is called Hajimatarota. What can you do, right? What can you do? And it's a poetic reflection from the diaspora of my soul. What can you do when the story folds before you finish the sentence? When the goodbye arrives without ever being spoken? Hajimotoropta. It came, it went. Like love that only shows up in photographs, like justice that knocks but never enters. My mother's voice was a candle burning down from both ends, telling tales wrapped in hanbok silence and cardboard boxes stamped internment. Her sighs had subtitles, her wounds had addresses. She taught me that comfort of the expected, the ache that doesn't surprise you anymore. She taught me that. And what can you do? Hajimotorota. When your father's uniform is stitched with pride but welcome home with contempt, the drum still beats boom, 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 but it sounds like questions now. Hajimotorota. What can you do? When your hands have always been full, but they keep asking you to carry more. You breathe, you walk, you light lanterns with your memory. You drum because your pulse won't forget. You name yourself. I got so much to put into this. And this part of it, when I said that your hands have always been full, but they keep asking you for more, that's even in today's current day. I remember a temp job. There was a black girl, and it was like a bunch of Spanish people working. And the Spanish girl told her to do something else, could hardly speak English. And it was just, and she was like, "Oh, you want me to do this too?" And it was just, you had to be there, right? And then the part of it that says, you drum because you light lanterns with your memory. You drum because your pulse won't forget. You name yourself. That's the Kwanzaa principle of Kujichugulia, which is you define yourself for yourself, even when no one else will. And that goes in line with, what's her name? I don't keep up with politics. She said she was the vice president. What's her name? Carmela Harris or something. No disrespect, I just don't keep up with that stuff. But Kamala Harris, that's who she was, right? She said how her parents told her, because her mother is Indian and her dad's black. She said, don't let nobody else define you. You tell people, tell you who you are. You tell them who you are, right? But you name yourself even, I'm going to continue. You name yourself even when no one else will, because not all hope leaves. Some of it hides, some of it waits. Inside phrases like Hajimataropta, whispers pass down like recipes in rebellion. And what can you do? You live louder than they're forgetting. Amen. You become the echo they tried to silence, right? So that is the end. But I just had to share that because it came out of nowhere, like back to back.